Hello everyone, Rose here. So a few days ago, Behavior released the 9.3 mid-chapter update, and honestly, after the many weeks and months of all of us watching to see what Behavior is going to do with their initiative to help reduce excessive tunneling, slugging, and camping, I can't help but think this patch is just absolutely mild in what it provides. Upon reading these and playing the patch for myself a little bit, it very much seems like Behavior doesn't really know what to do when addressing the state of the game right now. Or they are, and they're doing so from a completely wrong angle. Especially since this is the second time that they recently rolled back changes related to these issues, that being on the 9.2 new chapter release of Sinister Grace. But we'll talk more on that later. So what do they actually changed in this update? Well, first off is for hooked survivors, the resolve bar, aka the Anti-Facecamp meter, is now shown to all other survivors. And this is pretty nice, as it allows the other survivors to basically see the resolve bar and make informed decisions on that information, such as, hey, we need to go do gens, or hey, we need to heal this person because the killer is now camping Hook. And it also is nice for new players to help them realize that if they take chase near the hooked survivor, that survivor is no longer getting resolved because of the survivor being near and the killer being near as well. So it lets players know, hey, you should probably take the chase away from the hook, which is very nice. They also increase the rate at which the anti-facecamp meter fills based on how long the killer stays near the hook. So the longer a killer stays, the faster it fills. But at the same time, they also decreased the base fill rate of the meter by 50%, which is very odd. This is supposed to help with slower killers to not get heavily punished for being near hooks on certain maps such as Midwich and Gideon's, where there are 2 floors and a lot of the hook spawns are in cramped areas, so that the killer isn't just giving away free anti-camp to the hook survivor. But I feel as though this creates a separate issue with proxy camping, specifically proxy camping with more high mobility killers such as Ghoul and Wesker, where they can just effectively face camp by proxy camping and then just using their powers to get to the hook anyways. Whereas other killers just can't do that at all. Now, I think proxy camping to some degree is a valid tactic that's fair to use, but I feel like with these types of killers, they can cheaply use this tactic more than others, and I don't think these changes really help with that. But in terms of actual face camping, this is pretty nice. But the next change, though, is very oof. Survivors gain 10% haste and endurance for 15 seconds after being unhooked. So this is kind of the start of the problems when it comes to this update. These type of flat base kit changes that affect all aspects of the game. I think this is the wrong approach that Behavior is making when it comes to this Operation Health initiative. 15 seconds of endurance is a long time for a killer, but it's practically even longer for lower tier killers such as Trapper, Doctor, Ghostface, and a lot more punishing for them than stronger killers who can already easily tunnel. And I don't think this base kit increase is really gonna set out on stopping excessive tunneling, and instead it's just gonna pressure killers to instead hit through the endurance status vest and just force the down. Because other options are very terrible for killer right now. Tunneling right now in DBD is still the most effective killer strategy in the game. And it's not even really because it's that strong of a strategy, because, like I said before, other strategies and builds such as endgame builds, anti-healing, etc. are just pretty weak overall right now. And the higher tier, stronger killers are just naturally better at tunneling. They don't care if they have to wait 15 seconds of endurance to get the down. They can afford that time loss. At this point, I think it's safe to say that honestly, high tier killers such as Blight, Nurse, Crossu, etc. just need nerfs in ways that heavily hinder their tunneling capabilities. And on top of that, buff weaker killers that help them benefit off other modes of play other than tunneling. There is a huge disparity between the strongest killers in the game and the weakest killers in the game, and only when all the killers are around an even level can behavior actually start to implement these types of basic changes to make the overall game better. They also added in some buffs for the Skull Merchant, which, I'm just gonna be real, what is the point of this? What happened to the supposed Skull Merchant rework that behavior was supposed to work on? Because now, since the announcement that the Trickster would also be getting a rework, with these buffs coming out, are we just throwing her rework in the bin? That's probably not going to be the case, but considering how unclear behavior is with communication, I don't really think it's entirely out the realm of possibility. These buffs, while nice, are definitely not going to help her climb out of the hole that she is in, and it's not going to attract new players to suddenly pick her up. I think that the effort that they put into making these specific changes could have been better spent elsewhere or saved on the actual Skull Merchant rework, if that is to come. Speaking of other killer changes, they also are changing 2 add-ons for both the Cenobite and the Singularity, specifically the original Pain for the Cenobite and the Soma family photo for the Singularity. For the Soma family photo, I think the change is fine, just extra seconds of hindered on Survivor in exchange for not inflicting deep wound is perfectly acceptable. The original Pain, however, they reworked it, so now when a survivor breaks free from a chain, it reveals their aura for 8 seconds. I think this is a weird change, because now that this mirrors another purple add-on for Pinhead called the Greasy Black Lens, and now they pretty much do the same thing, kind of just making the add-ons a bit redundant. I suppose with these 2 add-ons, you could stack the 2 effects together, but why would you as Pinhead? As Pinhead, when you inflict chain on Survivor, you're pretty much already on top of them anyway, so the aura reading doesn't really matter that much. So having double aura reading just from inflicting a chain onto the Survivor, not very useful. And a rework of this add-on isn't really necessary if the goal was to stop Pinhead players from just shredding through endurance upon Unhook or anything else like that. Personally, I would change it to where instead of the possessed chain itself inflicting deep wound after survivors break from it, the chain only inflicts deep wound if you M1 them when they are inflicted with the chain. This would make it still have its original effect, but you just can't use it on injured survivors. You can only use it on healthy survivors. So it keeps the original effect, just making it more situational and more conditional. But that's not the only add-on changes that they changed. They changed 2 of the strongest add-ons for medkits on Survivor as well. The Anti-Hemorrhagic Syringe, which is now called the Anti-Exhaustion Syringe, and the Styptic Agent. Now, I agree that these 2 add-ons on medkits were pretty damn strong, but now they've completely flipped them over. They're almost completely useless. For the Syringe, no survivor that uses exhaustion perks is gonna bother using its mild effect, because typically exhaustion perks already have a fairly short duration of exhaustion, and there are other supportive perks in the game that help you recover exhaustion faster, such as Visual, Ghost Notes, Blood Rush. And as for the Styptic, increased efficiency of charges is almost always worse than just having more charges overall. As a survivor, you can just bring the brown bandages add-on, which gives you the smallest amount of extra charges on your medkit, and your heal will still be more efficient than just bringing the Styptic. Even though the Styptic is still purple, like, what are they doing here? The only way the Styptic could be worth is like if you take it and then you bring the gel dressings, which gives you the most amount of charges so that you just get maximum efficiency. But it's only for healing other survivors, because since healing other survivors is technically the most efficient way to heal. But nobody brings medkits to heal other survivors faster. They just bring medkits in order to heal themselves, because all in all, that's more efficient. You only take one person to heal yourself instead of two people needing to heal. So yeah, they just completely missed the mark with these two add-ons, and despite being the rarest survivor add-ons in the game, like, they are almost just not worth bringing now. That's quite disappointing. Then we have the titular pallet density changes. Oh boy. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but from what I've looked up and researched on, a lot of the changes for the pallet densities and a lot of the tiles, they're just bugged. They're just straight up bugged. Like, you can walk over rocks and over certain tiles and like freaking Mount Ormond, the backwater swamp, like certain tiles and pallets just don't spawn correctly. So whatever they did with these pallet density changes, they just completely messed it up. And they, once again, much like with the survivor item add-ons, they completely went on 180, and now a lot of these pallets and tiles are just very unsafe for survivors now, just completely, like more dead zones and etc. I understand that the previous pallet density update back in 9.2 was a big problem, and a lot of the weaker killers just got straight up punished for it, because they have to deal with pallets and these tiles more harshly than high tier killers who can just kind of breeze through them. But still, this kind of just seems more unfair towards survivors and doesn't really incentivize skillful gameplay around these tiles. As well as the tile changes, we also got a few changes to the underground complex, aka Hawkins and Autohaven. For Hawkins, they basically changed the layout of the map to be more open and more easier to traverse around the map. And I'm gonna say, over the times I've played Survivor, anecdotally, Hawkins has been consistently like my worst map to go around and try to do stuff and find gens or whatever. It is an absolute nightmare to traverse, and I'm glad that they finally changed it to be a bit more easier to navigate. As for Autohaven, however, adjusted the Autohaven Wrecker's Realm to help mitigate the overall feeling of excessive darkness. You mean completely overhaul the map? Why does it look like this? It is so green and foggy and just dull, and I have no words. It is honestly the worst looking map now in the entirety of the game, and I don't say that lightly. And it's not really even that the entire player base asked for an overhaul of the map. All we kind of really asked for is to just increase the luminosity, increase the brightness, adjust the lighting of the map so it doesn't look freaking dark half the time, and that every player doesn't have to use filters on the game in order to see properly on the map. Like, it just visually and aesthetically looks less pleasing, and I just don't like this change, and it honestly just makes me feel very disappointed whenever I see this realm now. And last but not least, we have some quality of life updates for the UX, the UI, and quite a few bug fixes. Bug fixes, there's just going to be new ones added to this update, so I'm not holding out much on that. But for the UI and the UX, they're actually pretty good. The menus now look nicer, and the most coolest change is scratch marks can now be customized. I have mine set to teal, which you can probably see in the background footage right now, and it looks pretty good, so good job there. Alright, so gun to my head, do I think this is the absolute worst update the game has to offer? I'm gonna be honest, no. There are definitely worst updates that this game had over its previous years, but this update in particular is far from good either. It is just overall very mild and very mid for what this type of update is supposed to be. This update was supposed to be the one to firmly cement changes to help reduce tunneling, slugging, and camping that many killers were heavily implementing in their games. And yet this is the second time that they've rolled back changes like this. So we are still no further in progress of this Operation Health initiative that they are trying to carrying out. Many of those types of issues are still in the game, and people are still complaining about them. And now, with Behavior releasing a teaser trailer on the Stranger Things Chapter Part 2 that's gonna be coming in January, it makes me ask, what was the point of this? What was the point of the Operation Health initiative that they are carrying out? Because now it seems like it will never come to fruition, which is quite sad. But at the end of the day, I still enjoy the game. I still enjoy learning the game, learning killers, learning new perks and how to play them, despite how little hours I have in this game. And I still wanted to remain dedicated to this game. So hopefully Behavior gets their act together and starts implementing good new changes for the game, and hopefully the Stranger Things content that's coming in January will be good. But until then, skepticism is kind of required when playing this game. So yeah. But anyways, thank you for watching my very first video. I appreciate you taking the time to do so. I do want to try to make more videos like this, or more videos dedicated around Dead by Daylight. So if you look forward to that, please subscribe. If you like what I had to say in this video, give it a like, and please comment anything, what you feel about the update, what you wanted me to talk about in this update, if there's anything I missed. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you all in the fog.